I'm Sarah Pullman for Geek Entertainment Television. We're here at the Netsquared social gathering. We've been surrounded all day by geeks and nonprofit organizations, sometimes overlapping, sometimes not. Everyone here knows what Netsquared is, but what we're really looking for is, what's the square root of net?
Isn't it net? No, it's net. What's one power up from cubed? No. Yeah, I write in text. They don't let me touch the code or anything with numbers.
What is the square root of net? I don't know how to answer that. You totally surprised me with that question.
What's the square root of net?
I don't do math.
Then what was the last thing you looked up on Wikipedia?
I don't remember.
What is the square root of net? It's the cube root of interaction. It's the infinite polynomial that can be factored into an arbitrary number of collaborations extended over the infinite sum of human creativity.
Wow.
It's the square root of net. The square root of net is bringing 4 different acts with 4 different types of people together and getting everybody to network around them.
Sweet. And what was the last thing you looked up on Wikipedia?
The last thing I looked up on Wikipedia was Leonard Pusey. Leonard Pusey is my uncle who in 1952 invented the steps that the Temptations used.
What is the square root of net?
Woot.
Woot. With 2 zeros, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Seth, tell me, what was the last thing you looked up on Wikipedia?
Zach Rosen.
Another participant at this conference. How intriguing. What did you learn?
Well, I often lose perspective at these things. I don't know if geeks are cool or not, or if geeks are famous or awesome or not. So I keep hearing about comedians and Zach Rosen.
Zach Rosen of Civic Space Labs. Zach's also been at the Netsquared Conference all day, so you know what Netsquared is about. But tell me, what's the square root of net?
I don't know. I dropped out of school before I learned such things. Boy, that's Neil Drumm. He probably knows the answer to this. He's much better. He did my homework for me. So.
And can you tell me what the last thing you looked up on Wikipedia was?
Yeah. Okay, so you know that guy who Ethan Zuckerman totally made fun of in his panel? That guy with the Sir Geldorf guy. I Wikipedia'd him, and his Wikipedia entry is quite dorky.
Well, you go find some math geeks and ask them.
Zach told us that was you.
No, not me.
What we're wondering, though, is what's the square root of net?
I have no idea. I know that Netsquared was really brought on sort of like the net effect, and that's sort of really where the squared came from, because it's sort of exponential in growth.
What our viewers need to know is, what is the square root of net?
Empowerment.
What is the square root of net? It's an imaginary number. It's sort of like what happens when you take the square root of 1. If you actually put the real numbers on a plane, and then you add the square root of 1 to them, you actually get an orthogonal plane to it, and so they represent sort of a 3-dimensional space of a possible universe of numbers infinitely larger than just the real numbers. Once you add the square root of net to that, it would be sort of a 4th-dimensional representation. So that would essentially be the space of imaginary numbers, but also multiplied by another orthogonal plane that you could only represent through a 4-dimensional vector space.
And maybe you also can tell us then what the square root of net is.
I think it's ET to the N, possibly. But the meaning of net squared is it's something that we spent about a month or 2 trying to define, and then we realized that it has no definition because it is what people are making it into.
Identity.
Say more about identity, Kaliya.
It's all about identity. How are we going to move around between all these really groovy social networks that are going to serve the entire civil society sector? Are we really going to have 50 profiles because we want to save the whales and, make the forest really groovy? And
what's the square root of net?
Well, that's a good question. Net, of course, is 10 backwards. So the square root of 10 is, what is that, 3
3 point something.
3 point something, right. So the square root of net is clearly something 0.3.
Brilliant.